Hello and welcome everybody. In this episode, I would like to cover a new module in Dynamics 365 for finance and supply chain management called subscription billing. The functionality in that module is not new. It was available for a while from an ISV partner called Binary Stream. Right now, Microsoft had purchased that IP and incorporated it into the standard Dynamics 365. The module consists of three parts: the recurrent contract billing, revenue and expense deferrals, and multi-line element revenue allocation. In this video, I'll cover only the recurrent contract billing and probably will cover the remaining two in a separate video. Recurrent contract billing allows you to generate invoices on recurrent basis. First thing we need to talk about here is that in order for you to enable subscription billing, you need to turn off revenue recognition feature. Apparently those two are not compatible, or Microsoft had not made them compatible yet, and therefore you need to do that before you would be able to activate subscription billing feature. When we're talking about recurrent billing, the process follows these steps. First, we're starting with a billing schedule. We create a billing schedule by assigning a customer to it and then from two dates. Once that is done, we will add products to billing schedule. The products may be inventoried products, maybe non-inventoried products, or maybe service products. Either one would work. Then we will do an optional step of entering dates and counters. These steps will be necessary if we have milestone billing enabled or billing based on the counters. Once that is done, we will then run a proposal to generate invoices. The system will either generate a free text invoice or generate a sales order and post an invoice for it. And once that is done, we will then review resulting transactions. Let's go ahead and create a billing schedule. First thing, we'll go to navigate to subscription billing module, open recurrent contract billing, and then go to active billing schedules. We will create a new schedule. We'll see the billing schedule group is default. We will select a customer. We will define the starting date. Let's start on February 1st of 2022. We will define a number of periods as 12, and the system automatically calculates the end, which will be end of January in 2023. Click on OK. Here we see all the information about the billing schedule itself, customer, billing terms, start and dates, billing intervals, and billing frequency. Then we're going to scroll down, and let's start with the most simple example. I'll add a service item called installation. Right now, we have this item type, which I will keep standard, but there are two more options here, usage and milestone. But first few examples will be strictly about item type standard. We see the status and start and dates, which we'll copy from the header. Then we see quantity, and then we see pricing method as standard. So let's keep it standard. What does standard mean? Standard means the price that we see right here will be copied from the release product. It may be coming in from the trade agreement sales price, or it may be coming from base sales price. But this price is coming from the release product, and I cannot change it. You can see that the editing is disabled. In a nutshell, what can we do with that line? Well, let's generate an invoice here. Click in the top left corner, click Generate Invoice, and let's keep the date as of today, February 8th. Here are the few options that we have here. Create sales order, so it's only going to generate a sales order, and then we need to invoice it separately. Another option is to show posting invoice and create invoice proposal page. So what that means is going to generate a sales order and open post invoice form for us. And this option right here on the bottom would not only generate a sales order, but automatically post an invoice for it. If we want to generate a free text invoice, we will then select invoice transaction type free text invoice, and then we would be able to select free text invoice here. For this exercise, I will create a sales order, and I will just create a sales order, not gonna post an invoice for it. All I want to see is which transactions are included. So the date is today's, February 8th, and let's click on View Billing Schedules. What we see here is a single line for the month of February, which says quantity 1, and the amount is 5, and therefore the net amount for our sales order will be $5, which we can then invoice. Pretty straightforward. Let's go back and let's change date to a date in March. Let's say March 16, and then view billing schedules. Well, because we are billing monthly, now we see two lines that are included, one for February, one for March. Both are at $5, and therefore if I were to click on generate right now, the system will generate a single invoice with two sales order lines. All right, so let's go back and let's cancel out of it. What are other pricing methods? Well, we also have a pricing method called flat. when we switch to that, nothing happens on the surface, but what becomes editable is the unit price field. So here I can go and adjust it to a higher number, let's say $10, or I can change it to a lower value of, let's say, $4.50. Other than that, it's basically the same as the standard. So if I go to generate invoice proposal for the month of February and click on view billing schedules, I'll see the same single line for February, and the net amount for my sales order will be $4.50. Let's go back and let's cancel. Now I want to talk to you about other pricing methods, which is tier. So when we select tier, we see the price is $5. And if I were to look at my billing details here, I'll see that all of my periods from February of 2022 to January 23 are at net $5. What I can also do here is, what if I change the quantity from 1 to 100, for example? Right, nothing changes here. We click on view billing details, and we see that nothing changes. The unit price still is $5, and the net amount is $5 times 100, $500. But what happens if I were to go and change the quantity to 101? And then we click on view billing details. You would expect, if it was still at $5, you would expect it to be $505. But you'll see that the net amount here is actually $504.50. So the unit number 101 was sold not at $5, but rather at $4.50. Where is it coming from? Well, if we open that product, here's our release product. I have created a trade agreement right here for sales prices, and you will see that I have $5 from units from 0 to 100, from 100 to 200, I have $4.50. That's basically how the tier pricing actually works here. It doesn't really work and say $4.50 times 101. That's how the standard trade agreement functionality would function. What the guys from Binary Stream did instead, and I would encourage you to watch some videos that they posted on the functionality. They go in much more details than I do. I definitely encourage you to go and explore their content. What they're doing here is they're basically selling you first 100 units at $5, and then any units from 100 to 200 will be sold at $4.50 instead. That's why we see $504.50. And if we go, for example, and change the quantity to something 102 and look at the billing details here, we'll see that the total will be 509. So the two last units were sold at $4.50, therefore we see 509 here. That's basically a tier. What about the last option that we see, which is a flat tier? Let's just add a second line here for the product called service. We have a quantity of 1. We're going to still keep the item type standard, but we're going to change the pricing method to flat tier. Right away, we see $500 populated. And for any quantity between 1 and 100, there will be a flat amount of $500 per month that will be billed for it. So for example, if I type in, let's say 100 here and click on view billing details, we'll see that the system kind of automatically adjusts the unit price, but it's still sticking to 500 because the number of units I have here is 100. But if I change it to 101 and go to view billing details, we'll see that the amount had dropped from, or had increased from 500 to 950. So we basically have a fixed amount if the quantity falls within a certain range. From 0 to 100, the flat amount will be 500. From 100 to 200, the flat amount will be 950. So a slight discount per unit compared to from 0 to 100. Where is that done? Same as previously, we need to go and open that release product first, and then view sales prices. You will see there is a new column that was added by this module called flat tier amount. And you can see that for the first line, from 0 to 100 units, the flat tier amount is 500, and then from 100 to 200 we have 950, and then from 200 to 300 we have 1400, etc. That is why we see these amounts right here. So let me show you again. So we expect 1400 if we have any quantity between 200 and 300. Let's just double check that. So let's say go 269, view billing details. We see that the net amount is 1400, and the system just on the background retroactively adjusts the price per unit just to kind of give you a sense of what the price per unit is. But still, regardless, if we have any quantity between 2 and 300, the net amount will be 1400. So that's basically a flat tier pricing method right here. Another thing that I wanted to show here is, let's just go back to the first line and let's change this, the price to, say, standard. Let's maybe make a quantity of 1. All right, so now we have a first line, quantity of 1, unit price 500, standard pricing method. So if we look at the view bill in details, we'll see that the system will basically tell us to invoice $5 per each period. But I also have these advanced pricing options right here under 3 dots, advanced pricing options. Here I can specify a free quantity. So let's say we're going to give 2 units free. And then this free count resets every 1 period right here. And I'm not going to set up any minimum or maximum billings, but you can also do that. But I'm basically saying the first 2 quantities are free. So when I do that, I have a quantity of 1, and when I look at my billing details, I see, well, I have a quantity of 1, the free quantity is 1, the unit price is $5, but the net amount is 0. It basically says, well, the first 2 are free and you're only selling 1 per period, therefore you should invoice 0. But if we go back and increase the quantity from, let's say, 1 to 4, and then look at billing details, we see that the quantity on each line is 4. The first 2 units are free. Billable quantity is 2. Price per unit is 5. And therefore, the net amount for those 2 billable units will be $10 per period. Right? This is another layer that this subscription billing had added. Right? I think it's a great functionality, to be honest. So that basically covers the first item type called standard. We covered all 4 available pricing methods. Let's just summarize. Standard is pulling the sales price from the released product. Flat allows you to enter the sales price on the billing schedule line itself. Tier looks at the quantity and then decides at which price to invoice each bucket, right? So it works slightly different from the trade agreement. Keep in mind, even though you define those tiers in terms of quantities using trade agreement journals, but the way the sales price is calculated is different. So if you're selling 101, the first 100 will be sold at one price, and the last one will be sold at a different price. And then the flat tiers, similar idea to tiers, but instead of calculating sales price per each, we then have a defined flat amount per each tier. Now I will add one more line. It's going to be for the same service item installation. And in here for the item type, I will select usage. When we do that, right away we see that the quantity field is grayed out. We cannot enter the quantities here, and instead we need to enter consumption either in the box here or in the view billing details form. What I can do here is I enter my current reading. So first of all, let's say I'm reading 1, and when I do that, the system says, all right, you have 1, billable quantity is 1 at $5 each, so the net amount will be 5. If I change it, for example, to 200, same idea, the current reading is 200, and then multiplied by the unit price of 4, we have a net amount of 800 here. You can see that this unit price has dropped from 5 to 4 because I have my sales price for that range defined as $4. I think the most useful this usage will be if we use the pricing method tier, right? So let's do that here. So we have a item type usage and we have tiers. So now let's play around with the readings here. So if we click on the view billing details, and let's modify our reading from 200 to 100 right here. We are in the first tier. The price is $5 per unit. We have 100 units, therefore our net amount is 500. If we change it to 101 here, we will see that the first 100 units at $5, the last one at $4.50, and so on. And then if we enter, for example, 200, we will see that the total net amount will be $9.50. So it's going to go and calculate the amount per each tier based on the readings that we have entered here, right? And you can see that the current reading for the one period becomes a previous reading for the next period. And we can also specify readings for periods in March, let's say, and let's say in April, and the system will automatically populate this net amounts for us right here. What we see here is because we selected reading, it basically does the subtraction and basically saying the first period we have consumed 200 units, the reading from the March period was 300, so it subtracted 300 minus the previous reading of 200, so therefore the total usage was 100 units right here. And then the same thing for the period of April, where it subtracted 400 current reading minus the previous reading of 300 to give us 100 units used. Therefore, we have the net amount of $500 per each. What you can also do here is change the reading option from reading to consumption. In consumption, it's going to take the number that you enter in the system and calculate the price based on that. So let's go back to the view billing details right here. And let's enter the current consumed, let's say, will be 100. So we'll see it's 500 net amount. But if we enter 200, we're basically saying, well, we're going to charge for 200 units because that's what was consumed. That was the consumption. If we enter 300, for example, here, we'll see that the net amount will be $13.50, right? So slight difference here between reading and consumption. And the last thing that I want to talk to you about is another item type, which is called milestone. So let's just add another line to our billing schedule right here. We're going to add it for the same product installation. Okay, my spelling here is terrible. Okay, installation. So now we're going to use the milestone functionality right here. Right away, when I've entered that, you see that the system kind of split my one line right here. It's actually right here into 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. So we have milestone, and then we have defined a milestone allocation. So if I click on milestone allocation right here, I'll see that I'm using this milestone template called equipment. If I were to look at it, it basically says, here's my milestone template, and we're going to allocate based on percentage, and we're going to allocate 50% to the item called hardware. The hardware item is inventoried product. We're going to allocate 30% to the item called software. That's an item type, but it doesn't have the stocked checkbox checked. And then we have training, which is a pure service item, non-stocked service type. That will be allocated remaining 20%. So this is our template. We use 50, 30, 20 split. This is how the revenue will be split if we were to use that extended price of $5. So right now, because our default price is $5, the system will allocate 50% of it, $2.50 to the hardware, $1.50 to training, to software, and $1 to training. But we can change that price by changing the value right here. For example, if we enter 10,000 right here, the system will automatically recalculate allocation to those 3 items that are included in my milestones as 5,000, 3,000, and 2,000. We will then click on process. Then it's going to go and update the unit prices for 3 of my components that were included in that installation. So let's just keep it simple, and let me just delete the previous 3 lines here so they're not in the way for us, so we can just concentrate on that milestone line. So all 4 lines, first of all, have the type milestone. We'll see that I cannot enter the end date on the header line, which is an installation. And I can only enter the end dates for my 3 components that were included in my template. All right, so we have 5, 3, and 2. But because we haven't entered any end dates, that means we have not met any milestones. So if we were to run the invoice right now for 2/8, we'll see there are no lines. Right? So let's go back. So what if we'll say, well, I got an information that we have delivered hardware, and therefore we can bill for that delivery, right? So all I need to do is specify a date, February 18, let's say, and let's run an invoice proposal. Generate invoice proposal to date of 2/8, and then click on View Billing Schedules. And here I see that the system only suggests us to bill $5,000 for the delivery of the hardware because we have an end date, because we have delivered on that milestone, and that's why the system suggests us to bill for it. If we back out of it, and let's enter the dates for the software in this case. Click on Generate Invoice, View Billing Schedules. Now we see 2 lines that are suggested for billing, hardware and software, and therefore the total amount that the system suggests us to invoice will be $8,000. Now let's just go and take it all the way, right? Let's come back to our flowchart right here. We talked about products, we talked about entering dates and counters, right? So the dates will be relevant for your milestone lines, the counters will be relevant for your counter lines. Now let's generate an invoice from the billing schedule. So what I'll do here is I'll look at the lines, I like the amount, it's $8,000, that's exactly what I want to invoice. And let's just go back, confirm what the settings here is. It's going to generate a sales order, but also let's just take it all the way and then post invoices automatically. Invoice date will be, let's say not today, but will be end of February, let's say. And let's click on view billing schedule, same two lines, $8,000, and let's click on generate. The hardware item is an inventoried item. So that process would have failed if I did not have sufficient inventory of that item in the warehouse 11, right? Because this is what my line is for. So you have to pay attention if you are using inventoried products. When you do that automatic posting, you have to make sure inventory is there. Alternatively, you can just generate a sales order, make sure the inventory is there in that specific site and warehouse, and maybe specify allocation for that inventoried product before posting sales order invoice. In this case, I had a default issue location for that item and I had on-hand inventory for the hardware item, so I was able to post sales order invoice. And now I can take a look at it, and you can see that I have this $5,000 invoiced on the sales order 1562, and here's my invoice number. And the same thing goes to that other line, view billing details. It's the same sales order, 1562, and same invoice number. We can click on that sales order number to look at it. We see here's our sales order, it is invoiced. We look at invoice journals. Here's our invoice journal. Let's take a look at the voucher. Again, no revenue deferral here, so it's pretty straightforward standard D365 postings. We have cost of goods sold, customer balance of $8,000, and the revenue, right? No revenue or expense deferral, which we will cover in the next video. Is it any different from any other customer invoice? No, it's not, right? So if we look at the customer right here, just switch to a header view. Let's take a look at this customer account N0001 and click on transactions. Here I will see my invoice transaction right here as any other standard invoice that you generate, either free text or the project invoice or sales order invoice. Now let's go back to our billing schedule and let's just conclude this video on showing one more thing that I wanted to show you here, guys. So you'll see that this line number 2 and 3 were automatically terminated because we have met our obligation and we basically completed those. So we have one more line that keeps that billing schedule open, which will be for delivery of training, which had not happened yet, and that will need to be invoiced separately. But if you want to, for example, to place that invoicing on hold, you can just click on place hold. You can select the reason code, let's say default, and click on OK. So here's my on hold schedule. I see it under all billing schedules. Now, if you don't see this remove hold option enabled, you need to make sure that you configure the reason code and you assign the override user group. Let me show you what I mean by this. If I were to go back to my recurrent contract billing parameters and click on remove hold user group override, you'll see that I have enabled user group approval to remove a hold, right? And of course, I'm a user of that user group. If you have not set it up, you will not be able to remove that billing from hold. So just keep that in mind. So if I want to remove that schedule from hold, I'll click on remove hold and click on OK. All right, that is all I wanted to show to you today, guys. I know it was a lot and it did not really cover the entire module. It was just an overview about the recurrent billing portion. If you guys are interested, I probably will do the deferral part next. Thank you very much. I hope you find it useful, and until the next time.